Okay, so I'm going to be reading this text for those of you who get a read aloud for one of your accommodations. I'm going to start with text number 1, which is Fund Locally Developed Culturally Relevant Services. This is written by Alicia Garza, the Special Projects Director for the National Domestic Workers Alliance. She is the co-founder of the Black Lives Matter movement. This was originally published in the New York Times on June 2nd, 2016. If I had $1 million to put towards a social problem, I would focus on trauma in Black communities, making sure that there are locally developed, culturally relevant services and supports for the psychological trauma our communities are experiencing, and undoubtedly passing on to the next generation. But any investment made in solving a social problem should somehow regenerate itself so that those solutions can be tested and sustained. Solving social problems requires being strategic about where resources are deployed. Often, the best approach is to invest in local infrastructure and community-led approaches to ensure that the solutions are being generated by the people who are affected by the problem. They know best why the problem exists and what needs to happen in order to solve the problem. Too much of the time, money being thrown at problems looks like advertising campaigns, not grassroots community engagement. People who are being impacted by social problems spend a lot of time thinking about solutions. We should empower them to innovate and create. Okay, I'm going to move on to the second text. Text number 2 is entitled, Remember, Money Doesn't Have to Be the Root of All Evil. It is written by Steven Pinker, who is a Johnston professor of psychology at Harvard University and the author of The Better Angels of Our Nature. This was originally published in the New York Times on June 2nd, 2016. It may cost more than $1 million, but many social problems could be alleviated with the creative infusion of cash. Compensating organ donors could increase the supply of organs and save thousands of lives annually. Paying opium farmers in Afghanistan and Latin America to grow something else could bring an even larger dividend in averted addictions and wars. And why not neutralize opposition to reducing carbon emissions by reimbursing coal miners or the entire fossil fuel industry for their losses? A big impediment is our moral psychology. People hold certain values sacred, and the very thought of trading them off against other goods, particularly via money, is considered heinous. We see these in metaphors that equate financial transactions with moral treachery: sell out, buy off, mercenary, whore. In one study, Israeli and Palestinian extremists presented with a hypothetical peace deal were more opposed, indeed incensed, when it was sweetened with the cash compensation from the United States and the European Union. Fortunately, human cognition is flexible, and the taboos surrounding a transaction can be mitigated if the transaction is conceived in alternative ways. Life insurance was once considered an outrage because it places a dollar value on human life and allows wives to bet their husbands will die. The insurance industry reframed it as an act of responsibility by husbands, who would be fulfilling their duty to their families even when they are dead. People who are scandalized at the thought of paying organ donors in cash calm down when the compensation takes the form of tuition credits, health insurance, or a retirement contribution. As technology and globalization generate ever greater surpluses while disrupting traditional livelihoods, the challenge of reallocating money for moral purposes will become more acute. If profits from self-driving trucks are shared with unemployed truck drivers, everyone wins. Negative income taxes, a guaranteed income, and charities that give directly to beneficiaries are probably less corrupting than people think, and often a pathway to enjoying the windfall of technological advances in the face of Luddites and isolationists. But often we overcome the intuition that money, but only if we overcome the intuition that money is the root of all evil. Okay, text number 3 is entitled, Investment Must Be Holistic to Promote Human Flourishing. Gabriel Salguero is the president and founder of the National Latino Evangelical Coalition and a pastor at Iglesia El Calvario in Orlando, Florida. This was originally published in the New York Times on June 2nd, 2016. Some years ago, Mark Zuckerberg invested $100 million in the Newark, New Jersey schools, and despite the generous amount of money, his goal of fixing the school system saw only modest success and plenty of setbacks. Simply stated, money by itself is not enough. That's not to say well-financed social projects can't generate widespread change. But social entrepreneurship is not just finances. It must also be matched by difficult decisions, sacrifice, and cultural change, driven by human kindness, ingenuity, and solidarity with the most vulnerable. The principle of stewardship requires a true pooling of resources to contribute to the flourishing of life of both givers and receivers. The question then can be, in what social problems can we invest 100 million to produce the cultural changes that will create real long-standing solutions? There are many social problems that require our attention, but perhaps one of that may see genuine results is the child foster care system. America has enough caring families and individuals to help provide competent love, care, and support for the millions of children in our foster care system. Investing $100 million in foster family training and support could go a long way in providing safe and loving homes for millions. The investment should be holistic so that the support of healthy families will have a corollary impact in education, juvenile justice, and employment. This, of course, takes much more than money. Health reform for children cannot be transformative without those with incredible capacity to love, welcome, and nurture children. And the fourth and final text, it's entitled Money Rarely Solves Complex Social Problems. The author is Carter Stewart, who is the former U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Ohio. He is a managing director of the Draper Richards Kaplan Foundation, and this was originally published in the New York Times on June 2nd, 2016. As a former federal prosecutor, I know firsthand that money rarely solves complex social problems. The millions of dollars spent annually by cities, states, and the federal government on law enforcement have not reduced illegal drug use, for example. Indeed, many of the most intractable problems we face as a society, addiction, homelessness, systematic poverty, mass incarceration, and lack of access to healthcare, education, and economic opportunity, are symptoms of other, more deeply rooted issues. Solving the root causes of these conditions require more than capital. It requires empathy and a willingness to change the existing conditions that create the inevitability of many of these inequities. Existing conditions are shaped by commonly and deeply held assumptions such as the poor are to blame for their station in life, or convicted felons deserve no sympathy, or certain groups are culturally bound to criminal behavior and cannot be changed. We can't expect social change with the help of either cash infusions or the law until society more widely views disadvantaged people as ourselves, our friends, our neighbors, and our families. Doubtless, civil rights leaders in the 1950s and 1960s needed money to support their fight for equality, but it was the images of people walking rather than riding segregated buses and of children braving fire hoses that more effectively changed hearts and minds across the country and inspired countless others to join the struggle. In other words, 100 million, let alone 500 million, will not on its own solve any of our most virulent social problems. Crossing the bridge at Selma, standing in solidarity at Ferguson, marching on Washington. These actions were heavy lifting done by a few for the good of many. To promote profound change, we need to harness collective action that advances justice, shifts perspectives, and lays the foundation for holistic change, one lifetime at a time.